Hello, everyone. Okay, so our lesson for this week, so we're doing this week of April 27th to May 1st. You can write down the actual day that you start this lesson. So you've learned how to find the slope from a graph. You've learned how to find it when you're given 2 points. Now today you're going to learn how to find it when you're given just an equation. Okay? All right, so just make sure you're in the right video. This is for non-academic math. So one of the things I wanted you to do was refer back to your lesson 6 handout and assignment and recall the slope that you previously found. So you don't have to go there. I'll give you the slope, but I just want to show you that the 5 questions I have on here are pretty much the questions that you had from lesson 6 handout and your lesson 6 assignment. Okay. And since you already found the slope, you don't have to find it all over again. I'm just going to write down the slopes that we got from before. So for the first one, we got that the slope was -3/2. You are welcome to go double check to make sure, you know, that I did this right, because if that helps you. Okay. And then this is 2 and this is 4/3. So again, these questions are the questions that you dealt with last week in your lesson and in your assignment. Okay, so the one thing I want you to look at is this, okay? Think, do you notice a pattern when you compare the equation and the corresponding slope? So when you compare the equation and the slope, okay, look at number 1. Look at the equation and look at the slope. Do you notice a pattern? And if you need to, I actually want you to try to figure this out on your own. Take maybe a couple of minutes to pause this video and see if you can figure it out without me telling you. I'm obviously going to tell you in about 2 seconds, but you know, I want you to figure it out. So for number 2, we have here 1/5. -1/5 is the slope. We have here -2. If I were to write -2 as a fraction, how would I write it? It would be -2/1. Okay, just because this is equal to each other, right? -2 divided by 1 is equal to -2. Same thing here. I'm writing down how this would look as a fraction because it might help you see the pattern. Okay, so pause it now. Find the pattern. Okay, so if you notice, the number in the slope in the numerator on top corresponds to the number that's being multiplied with the x, right? So it's called the coefficient of x. The number at the bottom, if you notice, is the same number as the coefficient of y. And if we go down all of these, you'll notice that that's what it is. So if you got it right, if you figured this pattern out, give yourself a high five right now. You're clapping for yourself. Awesome. And then we'll look at the negative symbols and the positive symbols after, okay? So here we have, 1, the number beside x is 1, because when there's no number, we assume it's 1, no number written down. And then 5, okay? And this one, so if you look here, 2, and then 1. Now the slope here is still negative, just like the other 2. And then number 4, if you notice, is 2/1. So coefficient of x over the coefficient of y. And then for number 5, the coefficient of x over the coefficient of y. Now, the only thing I haven't taught you about is the negative sign or the positive sign of the slope, whether it's positive or negative slope. Can you figure out why? So if you notice, both of these are positives, x and y. X and y are both positive, and x and y are both positive here, and their slope ends up being negative. And if you notice in 4 and 5, the x is positive, but the y is negative. And the x is positive, but the y is negative. And then what ends up happening is the slope is actually a positive slope. Okay, so this all kind of works together to make a pattern. And I just wanted you to be able to see, at least with the numbers, what the pattern is. So I'm going to write it down here. Okay, so it's the coefficient of x goes on top, also known as the numerator, if we're going to get mathematical with it. And then the coefficient of y goes on the bottom, which is the denominator. Okay, that's the pattern for the slope when you look in the equation, okay? I'm just going to put this line here just to signify Sorry, that's my food ready. I'm going to put this line here to signify, so coefficient at the top of x, coefficient of x on the top, and coefficient of y on the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to use the word top and numerator interchangeably and bottom and denominator interchangeably. Okay, it's just so you get used to the vocabulary of what we're doing. So you've seen this before, you've gotten the slopes before, okay? The other thing I wanted to signify besides the coefficients is, did you figure out, okay, when they're both positives, the slope is negative, and when the y is negative, okay, it ends up being a positive slope. So it's kind of like you multiply the numbers here, the coefficients, with the negative, right? Because it switches the sign. So I'm going to put here negative, okay? So let's do number 6 together with knowing what we know here, okay? So now you're going to look at number 6 and say, okay, what's the coefficient of x? Coefficient of x is the number 1, right? That goes on the top. What's the coefficient of y? The coefficient of y is negative 2. That goes on the bottom. Don't forget that negative, you notice the pattern that you actually multiply by negative, okay? So I'm going to put like brackets around there to show you're going to multiply this by negative. Okay, so what happens is a negative times a negative equals a positive. So you end up with 1 over 2. And that's the slope. Okay, do the next one. If you can do this ahead of me, once you understand the pattern, please feel free to go ahead of me. Okay, so the next one, notice the difference in the way that this is written versus the way that this is written, or any one of the other 5 questions that we saw. Notice that all from 1 to 6, the x and the y terms were actually on the same side of the equal sign. Whereas number 7, it's not on the same side of the equal sign. Okay, so you cannot use this pattern until both the x term and the y term are on the same side of the equal sign. So we're going to need to transpose this term, the y term, over to the other side so that it can be with the x term. Okay, so you know what to do. You've used this before where you solve equations, right? So if I want to move this over here. Okay, so the opposite of, positive 2y is minus 2y or negative 2y. Okay, so what you end up with is 3x minus 2y is equal to that positive 5. Okay, notice that I didn't write this down because when you do 2y take away 2y, well, that's equal to 0, right? That's no longer on the right side. And so now number 7 actually looks like similar to the setup of the questions from number 1 to 5. So now we can take the slope from there. Okay, so again, we're going to follow this pattern. Coefficient of x goes on top, so the coefficient of x goes on top. Okay, and then the coefficient of y goes on the bottom, so coefficient of y is negative 2. Okay, make sure that you don't forget to multiply it by a negative, okay? That negative is there. So what you end up with is positive 3 over 2. Right, and that goes with the pattern that we had before where, if x was positive and the y was negative, the slope actually ends up being positive. Okay, this is just like 4 and 5. Okay, moving on for number 8. Again, these are not on the same side of the equal sign. We need to get them on the same side. So let's move the 3y term over to the other side. It was a positive 3y, so the opposite operation would be to subtract by 3y. So then you end up with 9 is equal to 6x, minus 3y. Okay, so now this is on, even though, the x and the y variable here were on the left side, and now the x and y term are on the right side, that's okay. Okay, you just want them to both be on the same side. So once they are on the same side, you just take the coefficient of x over the coefficient of y, which is a negative 3, and then don't forget to multiply that with a negative. So what you end up with is, I'll do this in 2 steps, it's a positive 6 over 3, but really 6 divided by 3 is equal to 2. So when you're writing this down, you can skip this because if you can see right away that it's actually supposed to be positive 2. Okay, now we're going to deal with fractions, okay? Try this out. Pause this video if you can and try it before I do this, if you want. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. Okay, so we're going to do the coefficient. So first check x and y are already on one side of the equal sign, so we don't have to move anything. Okay, so now let's take the coefficient of x, which is 1 over 2. And it's divided by the coefficient of 3 over 4. Don't forget that that's multiplied by negative, okay? So you can either write it, this way, or you can write it like 1 over 2 divided by 3 over 4. Okay, same thing. I think you can see what we're going to do here. So I'm going to continue here. So remember that when you divide by a fraction, you need to take the reciprocal and change it to a multiply. So you take the reciprocal of 3 over 4, which is 4 over 3, and everything else stays the same. 1 over 2, okay? So now what we have is you multiply the two numerators. So you have negative 1 times 4 is equal to 4, or you can reduce this right away here. Up to you, okay? So it would be 4 over 6, right? Or you can reduce it right away here and cross this out and say, okay, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So really you're just left with, 1 times 2 and 1 times 3. So 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 3 is 3. So there's your slope. Okay, and then number 10. Our last question. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. So now we have our coefficient of x. Be careful. The coefficient of x is here. It's not necessarily the first term that's written, right? So it's this one. So it's 4 divided by 1 over 2. And you have to multiply it by negative. So right away, if you just want to write it down like this right away, that's also okay. Like the second thing that I'm writing, which is 4 divided by 1 over 2. So we know that if we had to make a fraction, it would be 4 over 1, okay? And then in order to multiply, or divide, fractions, you need to multiply the reciprocal of the second number, which is 2 over 1. So what you have here is 4 over 1, negatives there. Don't forget my equal sign. So what I end up with is negative 4 times 2 is 8. And that's your slope, right? Because 1 times 1 is equal to 1. And negative 8 divided by 1 is negative 8. Okay, so now I want you to think, again, if you can pause, you can. But I want you to look at this, okay? If I wrote down letters instead of numbers as my equation, can you figure out what the pattern or formula is to find a slope from that should say any equation. Okay, so we know math is all about patterns, and we show it to you with numbers, but it's actually, there's a formula that you can use, right? So pause if you want to figure it out. Otherwise, I'm going to continue and tell you what it is. Okay, if you look, let's, I'll write it below here. If you have ax, I'm going to make this a plus sign to make it easier, plus by is equal to any number. I think I'm gonna fix your handout so that it already has this, okay? Refer to here. I'm gonna take this out of here just so it's probably easier to see, okay? So here are your x's and your y's, and there's the coefficient. So the numbers are signified by capital letters, okay? So if you can see what the pattern is, okay? It's actually, you take the slope is going to be, okay, and we signify slope using an M, okay? Slope is equal to the coefficient of x, which is a, over the coefficient of the coefficient of y, which is equal to b. Don't forget that negative, okay? So it means in order to find the slope, the equation is actually negative A over B. Okay, and that's it for the lesson. Please use this to help you with your handout. Thank you.